2-player starter set.
Yes!
6 fully molded figurines.
Yes!
Plastic terrain complete with props.
Yes!
$45.
Yes! Yes! Come to Papa! Well, this stinks.
So when I was still a little Kohdok, I would see ads for what looked like the craziest board game of all time. A little game, or actually a big game, called Heroscape. It was billed as a sort of multiverse combat game, where characters from all sorts of realms and timelines would come into conflict on crazy hex grid terrain layouts made with interlocking plastic tiles. And man, the ads were insane! They were making entire continents out of this stuff! It was one of those things where my allowance really couldn't cover it, so I never actually got any when I was younger. But now, starting back in 2024, it's back! Heroscape has returned. Licensed from Hasbro by Renegade Games, the people behind the current iteration of World of Darkness. Seriously, when is the new version of Mage coming out? This iteration of Heroscape is actually a continuation of that old game, with all of the old pieces and figures still being supported, so if you have that old childhood toy in your attic, you can whip it out and play. Although that might be a bit of a nightmare for organized play, I assume they have their own legacy and modern formats. Heroscape is a miniature skirmish game played on an amorphous hex-based grid made out of a series of plastic tiles that also incorporate terrain types and elevation into its design. Make no mistake, this game is a real head-turner. You set this thing up and people will take notice. The plates themselves come in a few different sizes and are surprisingly lightweight and cleverly made. For the longest time, I assumed they were thick and heavy like my Mega Bloks terrain pieces, but no, they're universally colored brown plastic with a single layer of paint over them to denote grass or stone or snow or swampland. They also have a half-height clear tile which can be water or a magic spring, or lava or poison water. It's a great system, open up to a lot of possibility. This terrain system is also great for fans of classic Battletech, though the jury's still out on whether or not it can be used for the Gundam game, as we do not have the proper plates for that one yet. And this time, the folks at Renegade sent me their Battle for the Wellspring 2-player starter set. There are actually 2 versions of this starter set. This set, which is $45, and a version where the minis come pre-painted for $20 more. I like that the unpainted version of this set exists because it lowers the price point for people to play. And while the miniatures aren't perfect, the sorts of people who enjoy painting their minis are used to applying a little TLC by now. That said, despite being a fantastic low-cost entry point, the box itself doesn't really advertise it that well. This has been out for over a year but has escaped my notice because nowhere on the box does it advertise that it is, in fact, a fully playable game for 2 players. Instead, I would see the big, expensive box on the shelf and think that this box was one of the many expansions that the game has. You have to put that on the front of the box. If somewhere, anywhere on this box, was a nice, brightly colored sign saying 2-player starter box right above that $45 price tag, I would have been on it like a hog on slop. Although I will admit, with a little more investigation, this box does have a black sticker on the outer wrapper that basically says exactly what I was saying, but it's also the same dark color as the box and kind of fails to grab attention or stand out. And that isn't helped by the fact that most stores stock this game with the narrow side facing out, space which should also indicate that this is the 2-player starter box. It needs to be on as many surfaces as this box can handle. It needs to leap out at players. Hey, hesitating on the massive investment of the core box? Here's something else to try. Although, make no mistake, I always applaud a company that makes a cheap point of entry, something even Games Workshop themselves recently was pressed into doing by making a version of their starter sets that lack the paint sets and are $25 cheaper. It just needs to say it out and proud. Without this sticker, this just looks like some anemic expansion set that sells itself on having special water tiles. If a product is meant to be a point of entry for the hesitant, it needs to be loud about it. The box itself contains 6 miniatures, 18 terrain pieces, 13 water tiles, and 2 jungle trees. It also has all of the cards and components needed for play, such as dice and damage counters. None of these components are technically redundant to the core set, so you really can try this set to see if you like it and get nothing but new content if you buy the core set. It also includes the cards to play with these characters, and while I have gone on record as complaining about unusual card shapes, at least here they try to justify it. It includes a rulebook and a separate scenario book with 3 builds and 4 scenarios. It actually has a fun little progression where you play the game once in the basic mode, then again on the same map with the advanced rules and the table flipped. The story is that you either take on the role of 3 pirates who seek to plunder the power of the Wellspring, or a druidic cephalopod who seeks to protect the Wellspring with the power of her animal friends. The 2 warbands actually play very differently from one another, as while the pirates have about 100 more points of characters than the druids can take advantage of their synergy bonuses in ways that the pirates cannot. But more on that later. How do you play a game of Heroscape? The basic version of the game is all about understanding movement and how attacking and defending works. It's a game of alternating activation, where a player picks one hero or squad, depicted as an army card, to perform a move action, then an attack action. Pretty simple so far, but Heroscape has a little quirk that characters in the basic game do not exhaust. You can activate the same army card multiple times, or even several times in a row. There is literally no end of round step or overall objective, just a melee that continues until one side is buried in the dirt. It means that you don't lose out on action economy as characters fall, but it does take a bit of unlearning to understand this little trick. So there are a few quirks to the movement in Heroscape, the rules being, a character can move as many tiles as their movement score, they must spend a point of movement for each level they ascend, they must end their move in a space where they fit, cannot pass through enemy fighters, and lose all of their remaining movement if they fully enter water. Which, yes, on that last one, it means that large characters who take up multiple spaces can essentially stride over it, but cannot end their movement on a solitary mesa. And yes, while climbing does take extra movement to do, there is a high ground bonus while attacking, so it's not always a bad idea to climb. As for attacking, it's the same as games like Warhammer. The attacker chooses a target in range that their character can see, and rolls their number of attack dice, plus 1 more if they have the high ground, to try to get as many skulls as possible. And the defender rolls a number of dice in their defense scores to try to get at least as many shields as their attacker got skulls. This favors the attacker, as all of the dice are the same, with 3 skulls, 2 shields, and a blank that causes nothing to happen. All units essentially hit on a 4-up and save on a 5-up if we're using Warhammer rules. Although, gotta nitpick here, there's a character who gets to roll 8 defense dice, but the box only comes with 6. If, after the defender rolls all of their dice, there are any unanswered skulls, that unit is dead. Yeah, basic mode is short and bloody, and like I said, primarily used to teach the core mechanics of the game before adding in the complexity. So, let's add that in. What's the advanced mode like? Well, first things first, you flip the cards over to their master side, which gives them a health pool and a ton of new abilities. After building the map and setting up their armies, players are given a series of icons to determine their order of operations. 3 shields numbered 1, 2, and 3, and a blank dummy shield used to fool opponents. These order tokens get dealt out onto your character cards at the start of the round and have your characters move in that order. And yes, you are allowed to put multiple order tokens onto a single character, which again lets players keep their action economy even if they fall behind, and is actually a part of the Druid's game plan. This also means that there are now rounds and objectives built into the system, though the rules of movement and combat are largely unchanged, though there is now a limit to how high a unit can move up or down in a single go based on their size, and there are special attacks which can be used instead of a regular attack that do not benefit from the high ground bonus. The 2 armies actually play pretty differently. The pirates are straightforward, advancing and using their ranged attacks when given the chance, with a small synergy bonus with their alien captain. Meanwhile, the squid and her animal friends are a lot more interesting. They are operating on a points deficit, but the squid lady has a special feature where every time she takes a turn, she can have one of her animal friends take a free turn beforehand, meaning that she literally gets twice the turns of the pirate player, though her other 2 units are weaker. It's a bit of an obvious strategy with an obvious linchpin, but it's still nice to see how each army plays so very differently from each other. She also gets a small terrain advantage as she can move through water at no penalty, which is nice since the objective in the final stage takes place in water. So the pirates have higher quality units and can win by playing aggressively, but the druids have home field advantage and can win by playing cleverly. It's nice to have the armies play so differently, and where it's so easy to simply swap armies when trying the game out with a friend. So, all in all, it's a solidly built starting product, with everything I would expect from a low-price set like this. Of course, there's also online supporting content, but so far all of the official maps have been made by combining multiple sets together, so they haven't made new adventures for this thing standalone just yet. Also, apparently they're about to come out with a G.I. Joe version of the game. It will also have a starter set like this one, which will be more expensive, but which also has more figures, 8 instead of 6, specifically the important named characters. And I did go ahead and ask, the G.I. Joe sets are compatible with the base game, which I guess actually makes sense based on how the Heroscape setting works. The original commercial saw a bunch of army boys dragged into the conflict, but it does feel a bit of a shame that part of the deal that Hasbro has with Renegade involves putting their other brands into basically anything they make, and in this case it feels a little like Hasbro really wants their own skirmish game to compete with all of the other ones out there, but the folks working on Heroscape over at Renegade seem genuinely passionate about the project based on the folks I spoke to at PAX Unplugged, where they had a bunch of the older sets on display alongside this new game. And at the end of the day, they made a full set for 2 people that costs less than a AAA video game, and I regularly see it go on sale even on their own website. It doesn't use paper playmats or cardboard standees, but full sculpted miniatures, ones which aren't found in the larger box, making it truly a trial set with 0 redundant or useless parts. It is everything I would ever want in a 2-player starter set, and the price point is phenomenal. Until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.